In fairness, I'm only running late because it took a while for Streamlab to boot. But good evening, everybody. I see we have some people in the chat, so I'm going to say hello to them first. Cousin Films LTD. Real quick, every show has flaws to it. Rise does. The 87 Turtles certainly did. 2003 and 2012. Hey, Gregor Stone, thank you. Cully, Michael Bassett, MJ Zilla, Benazir Gillespie. Ooh, I probably butchered that. Firepaw, The Purple Artist, Blue Flame, Beans, Amazing, British Carver Guy, Vintage Weeb 82, and Volcanic Torchlight. Hello from Antarctica. Hello again from Texas. So, Nicholas C. Rogers, I knew him. Papa Hud 69, David, Jordy the Chill Mean Cookie, Marlowe Knights, and whoever else may show up. So, I've got... Wait, hold on here. 15 and 17. Okay, are you talking about Professor Geek? So, yesterday we did a video or a stream making fun of Super 7 and calling out Brian's lies. Oh, fantastic. Well, hopefully you don't know one now, Nicholas. But we're not talking about those tonight. We're talking about dumb nerds, for the most part. Really dumb nerds, which you would think is a oxymoron, but not in this community. No. So, we talked about corporate stupidity yesterday. Today, we're talking about nerd stupidity, because these hands are rated E for everyone. We're going to go over 4 videos tonight, hopefully 4, if we have enough time, because we know that sometimes I take some time going through here. 2 are from Professor Geek, if I can tolerate him long enough. 1 is from Mr. Enter, and 1 is older than both of them in terms of video content. So, let's go ahead and deal with Professor Geek first. Now, we talked about Professor Geek a couple of other times on this channel, and never cared for it on either end. For a few reasons. Number 1, he is an absolute sophist. He is incapable of making rational arguments that actually stand up to even the tiniest bit of scrutiny. And secondly, what type of maniac uses Bitmoji art for his YouTube channel? I mean, hire an artist, my dude. Like, literal stick figures would be better than Bitmoji stuff. No, Nicholas, I have not. So, let's go ahead and start with Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and of cultural irresponsibility. He might be a college teacher, but either way, he's a sophist. We have a bunch of people in high positions that don't know what they're doing. If you want to evidence that, look at our government. All right, turtle time.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series that Nickelodeon will be airing this fall. The official trailer just dropped yesterday, I believe it was, and of course before that we had seen the reveals for the character designs and the general art direction for the show, and a lot of people, rightly so, had reacted negatively toward that.
How is it rightly so? For the record, when it comes to art style, which is not the same as animation, it's always going to be subjective. Always going to be subjective. You know what? I'm not going to suffer through this guy too much. Let's go ahead and do it 1.5 speed so I don't have to. Sound good? Sound good.
The general vision for the series. And now we see all of those fears really come to fruition with the trailer. In this critique,
What fears did they have based on a single piece of art? Because it didn't relay anything other than the new character designs.
I am going to briefly mention some of the points that I brought up in my critiques of the new Thundercats Roar series and the She-Ra reboot. So talking about the art style, the lack of an iconic feminine or iconic masculine, and so forth. But the real direction I want to take with the teenage...
The iconic feminine, the iconic masculine. What? Like, from what I understand, happy birthday, Mark Baker. From what I understand, Professor Geek supposedly is a Christian, so wouldn't the iconic masculine and iconic feminine be what's based on biblical ideology? Like, iconic masculine takes care of his family, doesn't suffer people to harm them. Iconic feminine, like, taking care of her kids. The Ninja Turtles have, like, never really done that. Ever. They're not there to be iconography of the masculine and feminine. They're there to be radioactive Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the tendency toward a lack of role models. And not just a lack of role models in general, but a disregard for responsibility as a value to promote for
Checkers Boy. TMNT is like the Transformers, and the only constant of the franchise has changed. That, and honestly, I think TMNT and Transformers have, for lack of a better word, earned the right to experiment. And almost every single time, there are, of course, exceptions, they're successful.
For children. The focus is on humor rather than promoting any kind of responsibility.
You didn't watch the show.
It's ironic because a lot of the television programming for younger kids, really young kids, that's gone in the opposite direction. It used to be back in the day, you would plop a very young child down in front of something like Tom and Jerry or something, just anything to keep them occupied. Nowadays you have things like a lot of the Disney Junior programming, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and whatnot, and those shows try to teach. Those shows try to help the child develop.
So which one's superior here? Geek, which one are you trying to argue for?
But when they grow a bit older than that, a lot of the programming stops trying to help them to develop and just seeks to entertain, make them laugh, hopefully lead them into the store and buy merchandise.
I hate to tell you this, Geek, and this might be something even consensual with people my age, but not every cartoon's purpose has to be to teach. You're a parent. That's your job. Your job.
There's no real focus on responsibility. And I'm harping on responsibility because that's a big lesson that heroes should teach children. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were conceived as heroes.
No, the Ninja Turtles were conceived as a parody, and the very first issue it showed that Splinter raised them to get revenge and to kill Shredder. They were not conceived as heroes.
There's a little bit of an innate silliness in their conception, the idea of 4 anthropomorphic turtles with masks on.
Every fiction's silly.
The very name, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's obviously beginning from an absurd premise, but that's what cartoons do. And built on that was a solid mythology, a solid story, and solid characters. In that original series, of course, that began in '87, even on through the 2000s reboot that tried...
So you're talking only about the cartoons. Oh, we're going to have some fun with you.
...to maintain this idea of who those characters were and the values they promoted.
Okay. Geek, you're not here. You're never going to show up here, because let's be honest, if you had the ability to show up and challenge people who can argue against you, you wouldn't be doing your YouTube videos the way you do now. Tell me how Raphael from 1987 and 2003 keep the same character dynamic. Hello, Jeff. Hope you're doing well, too. Hello, Sketchy, Dr. Dictator. Levon, of course. 2003 Raphael was closer to the comics and the 90s movie. He was very angry, very aggressive. He went out looking for heads to bust. 87 Raphael, he was more relaxed. He was sarcastic and biting in wit. They're not the same character.
That's the work that heroes do. And we see already in the trailer for this new series coming out in September.
Avatar Machiro, thank you for the $2 super chat. Not seeing Rise, but I will say the art style is neat. Rise, I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I'm probably going to get pushback from somebody at some point, and that's fine. I'm open to challenges. Rise is the best animated show here in the West. Like, in years. So, yeah, it's goofy that they're mad at it.
We see so much of that just simply disregarded. For one thing, it appears that Leonardo is no longer the leader of the team now. Maybe they've come out and said that in some press releases or whatever, but I'm just speaking from what we've seen from the general imagery and certainly in the trailer. Raphael seems to be the one calling the shots a bit more. And that's an odd choice right off the bat. Raphael's the hothead, right? Raphael's the one who's quick to action. That's not a quality you look for in leadership.
Not this Raphael. Again, Ninja Turtles has earned the right to experiment, and this show was actually fun, and it did get better as it went on. Everything he complains about in this video and the next are things that the show actually addresses and alters because they actually build the characters. Not to say the other 2 or other 3 cartoons beforehand didn't do that, but Rise went in a different direction, and that's okay sometimes. It's fine.
Yep. But more than just that, there's actually a throwaway joke that you see.
Sketchy, no, dude, you need to look at the fight scenes in Rise. Like, that is some next-tier stuff going on there.
In the trailer, in which at one point one of the turtles says something about, this is what we've been training for, and Leonardo stops and says, wait, training? You guys have been training?
It's a joke, Geek. It was a joke.
And that's supposed to be a joke, of course, you know, like, oh, he was left out of that or whatever. That's a horrible joke. First of all, it's a cheap joke. It's not really even all that funny.
It is funny, because you don't even have evidence that he got left out. It may have just been him being catty, because that's how this new Leonardo is. He's a smart aleck, which is fine.
But in order to make that cheap joke, the series has to commit to the fact that Leonardo didn't even train, so one of the brothers doesn't even train with the rest of them. That's irresponsible. And if that wasn't enough, after the trailer, the video I watched on YouTube featured a clip from the series, and it has the 4 Ninja Turtles on top of a rooftop, and they are looking through their binoculars. On another rooftop, you see something going down, like a big mob boss getting ready to receive payment or something like that, something going down, and the Turtles fire their grappling line across the way, and they're going to wait for the certain moment, and they're sliding across the grappling line, and you get the idea that they're about to engage in some sort of hero work. Raphael's in front, of course, and he raises his fist to tell the rest of the Turtles to wait for it as they're sliding down this line. And then he finally gives the go-ahead, and you see them slide past the rooftop with the mob, whatever's going on up there. They go past that rooftop into the next one with a pool on the roof. And he gives the go-ahead, and they drop, and they all do big cannonballs in the pool, which splashes all the water out of the pool. Then this new version of April O'Neil, this infantilized, young, diversity-envisioned version of April O'Neil cheers.
How is she infantilized? Because she's a teenager? Because the 2012 version did that too. That's infantilized to you? Also, diversity. You really are mad that she's black. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just the truth of the matter. Like, nobody complained in this circle. I'm talking about, like, this asinine YouTube circle. When 2012 April came out and she was a teenager. Diversity envisioned. It's okay to change characters sometimes. Now, if they did that and patted themselves on the back for the whole thing, you might have an argument there. But this April is fun. She's more entertaining than the other ones. Just going to be honest here from my personal opinion here. She's a character, and she's fun.
For them. And I guess that's supposed to be funny. That's a joke. Ooh, misdirection. You thought we were going to do some responsible hero work, but we're just splashing into a pool.
This man, like a lot of people, seem to forget the first word in the title of this series. Teenage. I'm sorry, but if you think responsibility and teenagers go hand in hand, you haven't been around a teenager.
And then after that moment, they get ready to leave, and the character who's calling herself April O'Neil anyway says, wait a minute, and she puts out 2 signs, one to warn people that the surface is slippery, and then one to warn people that the pool has no water in it. And that's supposed to be responsible?
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's some sort of lesson? Don't worry about the fact that we just did this to a pool that we didn't own, that we just wrecked it, splashed all the water out of it.
Buddy, if you want to go through all the original Ninja Turtle comics and talk about, and even the original cartoon, and talk about all the things the Turtles did that, was horrifically irresponsible or downright illegal, buddy, you are in for a rough ride.
It's okay because
my biggest problem with people like Professor Geek, other than their pathetic arguments, their sophistry, is their inconsistency.
Put a couple signs up to call attention to the fact of what we did so we can pat ourselves on the back and call ourselves responsible. This is insane.
You can't take a joke.
This is what children's programming has come to today. And you compare this to something like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You compare Thundercats Roar to the original Thundercats, and
you might have a comparison there between Roar and Thundercats, but you don't between the original cartoon for Turtles and this, because the original cartoon for Turtles, a lot of people remember the original cartoon for the first 5 episodes that constituted the first season. Really well done. Up until the last few seasons, that show went on a downward spiral because of lack of proper direction. Like, are you kidding me?
You can see the vast difference in the type of values and the type of character that those shows were trying to promote in children, and the complete lack of interest that these shows today have in trying to promote anything like that.
Rise is literally all about family. About who you are as an individual and how it, helps round out your family dynamic.
And I do not think it's a coincidence that the art style is so cheap nowadays.
Cheap. You might be able to argue that with some other cartoons, but not with Rise. You cannot argue that Rise's art style or animation is cheap. I'm sorry, you can't. Like, they literally have... Look at this. They have actual line differentiation in terms of their inking. Like here, the side of Donatello's knee is a thinner line than here up the top of his knee, denoting shadow. These things you do not see in other cartoons. Like even down here, denoting darkness shadow on the bottom of Raph's fist, but up here where there's light, the line's thinner. This is not cheap. This takes time. Idiot.
Hypothetically, you could imagine a situation where the show might have a lot of substance, but the art style would be very cheap. So I'm not necessarily saying that these two are always and every time going to be linked, but I don't think it's a coincidence, because this art style, people try to say, well, it's just a different style, it's not to your taste, whatever, leave it alone, it's just a different style. No, it's not that. It's a different style, yes, but there's a reason that this style comes into play, because it's easier, it's cheaper.
Citation needed, evidence required, specifically for Roar. Specifically for Roar, I want evidence. You don't care or know about animation.
It's lazy. The Cal art style, for example, which is most prominently on display in the Thundercats Roar.
You cannot define Cal art style. Not properly. You want to know why? Number one, because it was started by a pedophile whose histrionic rants about the animation community are just absolutely asinine. He called Iron Giant CalArts. That's where that term comes from in the derogatory. You want to call it Bean Mouth? That's a lot better than CalArts style. And Rise, again, does not fit that.
With the B-shaped faces and everything. That style was developed because it's easier to mass produce. You can draw all of the characters looking basically the same. You can more quickly produce the images for the cartoon. Now, cutting corners in animation isn't anything new. I mean, the Hanna-Barbera cartoons were doing that way back in the day. So it's not necessarily a link between how much money a company is wanting to spend on it and how much substance the
pick a lane and stay in it.
Writers are going to place in the show. But I do think that it's all part of the same general problem, which is a push from the production companies just to make the money and not to worry about the effect that these shows are having on children. The original
Buddy, there's a lot of cartoons from the 90s that would like to have a talk with you about that, because that's exactly what they did.
original Masters of the Universe series, they sent that into a person who would draw out a moral from each story, and then they drew that out at the end of each episode.
Ninja Turtles didn't.
The Thundercats had a psychologist on staff, a child psychologist, looking at the effect these stories were going to have on children. Go ahead and tell me what kind of concern Teen Titans Go has for that. And you can see from the
They don't. But then again, I'm not here to defend Teen Titans Go, and I'm never going to. But Rise is not Teen Titans Go. What he's doing right now is called gish galloping. He's throwing a whole bunch of stuff at you to try to distract from the fact that he doesn't have an actual argument to make here.
trailers of Thundercats Roar and of this new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you can see that there's no concern there whatsoever, which I suspect might be the case, even if perhaps the first season of this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a story about the team coming together a bit and starting to take things more seriously and maybe trying to stop some evil and trying to be a bit better. It's still a vast step away from the level of seriousness that the first series took responsibility. I mean, these characters...
Yes, okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this. There's an episode in the original cartoon called Cowabunga Shredhead, where Shredder essentially thinks he's Michelangelo. Now, keep in mind, this is Shredder. He is the big bad of the original Ninja Turtle cartoon. He has tried taking over the world, he's stolen priceless artifacts, he's caused mass amounts of destruction. He has a partner that literally wants to open a gateway to another dimension to invade Earth. They had him in their lair where they could have taken him out or gotten him arrested or whatever, and they just play along with it. Do not talk to me about the original cartoon being a paragon for responsibility. The original cartoon was not bad. Not at all. But its primary focus was to have fun. The people who wrote it are like popcorn enthusiasts that like old monster movies, which made the cartoon great. It was inventive and creative. It wasn't there to primarily, that's the key word, get your kids to look up to characters. It was there primarily to entertain, and if they looked up to the characters when they did good, that's a plus.
Made mistakes all over the place, and they were young, they're teenagers, they showed their youthful mistakes all the time, but the priority was never a question.
Real quick, in the chat, I want you guys to take a guess. How old do you think these Ninja Turtles on the screen are? Just take a guess. Take a guess. I'll wait here for a few seconds, because I know it takes a minute for the chat to show up. One. Okay. For those of you who said 13, you're right. These Ninja Turtles, they're either 13 or 14. They are literally the youngest a teenager can be. Find a 13 to 14-year-old that is the paragon of heroic responsibility. These turtles are written closer to how actual teenagers operate than any other series has done. If you look at the original Turtles, and even the 2003 Turtles, and you remove teenage from there and show it to somebody who's not familiar with it, they're not going to look at those characters and think teenager. They're going to think, oh God, those people are in their 30s. Look how grizzled they are. Look how hardcore they are in terms of the 2003 cartoon. Leonardo literally cuts off Shredder's head.
They always knew, even in
And for the 87 Turtles, they literally drive. Like,
the midst of their muck-ups, that they should be acting better. These characters, as they're presented now in this trailer, and the art and everything, have no concern for that. And even if it's something they sort of slowly develop, that's still a vast step away from the prominence that this idea was given in earlier incarnations.
You don't know what you're talking about. You haven't watched the original cartoon in a very long time.
And in the original conception of the characters, what they were created to promote. We do have in this series a difference in character designs between the turtles. That's something new. Raphael looks like a more strongly built turtle and so forth. Some people might point to that as a great new development, but I think that's actually a problem, because the unity of design among the four turtles up to this point has always pointed to the fact that they're family, that they have these things in common, and that's a visual cue, but they still maintain their distinct individual personalities.
Professor Geek hates adopted families. No, it's a creative decision because they use different turtles to show the characters' personalities. And it also kind of helps get away from animation errors like the one in 87 had. For example, he's a bigger, stronger turtle. He's a doggone snapping turtle. He's an alligator snapping turtle. Raphael's a snapping turtle. Leonardo is actually the type of turtle the originals were based on, which is a red ear slider. Donatello is a soft-shelled turtle, which is why he has so much tech on his back, is to protect himself, because he has a soft shell. Hence why he's so brainy, because he has to focus more on his tech than he does his physical abilities. Michelangelo, he's a box shell turtle, which is the turtle that can contract into its shell. And he tats himself up with all this different art because he's an artist. He's a creative type in terms of artwork. Leonardo, he's the sleek everyman. And Raphael, he's the big, buff, internally teddy bear character. It's not hard to look at his design to say, okay, here's where they're going with this.
And abilities. And we saw that indicate...
I know a 14-year-old boy who has two of the literal Goonies in one. This child exists and messes with me 5 mornings a week. Oh, Lord. Give him a pair of size. Let's see him get some responsibility.
By the different colors of their masks and so forth, their different weapons, the different things they would engage in, Donatello the inventor, Leonardo the leader, and so forth. That's a great visual cue and symbolism that's lost here.
How? Donatello is literally using goggles. Raphael has bandages on him. Obviously rough and tumble. You're not paying attention. Hey, Mijimaru.
Then the idea of April O'Neil, the complete and total remake. Again, they've de-aged her, infantilized her into this short little CalArts-like character body. And that's a huge step away.
I'm sorry that the literal teenager doesn't have the tits you want. Granted, I'm not going to complain about the original April O'Neil. I'm also not going to complain about Irma. That's just me.
From the original archetype of her character, because she played on the idea of a Lois Lane type.
In fairness, Bana, the original Raphael doesn't use the size correctly either.
Character. But rather than a Lois Lane love interest, because there are 4 heroes and she's only one, you had her represent more of a feminine force that the turtles had to integrate into their growth.
No. She was a friend. It wasn't the fact that she was feminine that made her their friend. He's going to go off on a really weird tangent here.
Being adolescents and learning how to be heroes and take on responsibility in the world, they had this fully grown woman, fully realized feminine force in their lives, and sometimes she was the damsel, sometimes they had to save her, but she was also very intelligent and could aid them in many ways, and having her transcend that role of just love interest, because she wasn't going to be a love interest of all 4 turtles, or a turtle in general anyway, she became a very special kind of character, a motherly type character almost.
April was never a motherly type character to the turtles. She was a peer. And other versions of the Turtles, including Rise, have integrated her to be more of like a sister character. 2003 did it. 2012 absolutely did it, despite Dawn being... I did not like that. I never like it when the Turtles have a love interest in April. It's so doggone weird.
To Splinter's fatherly type character to them. I don't see this new April O'Neil becoming that at all. First of all, they de-aged her so much. People act like that's some sort of defense, especially with the She-Ra nonsense. Well, they've de-aged her, so it's fine. No, it's not. That's part of the problem. So that's just another nail in the coffin of this.
You notice no. Bad Starscream. Notice he's not talking about the fact that they changed the 84 comic April in the 87 one. She used to be a brilliant scientist. A brilliant scientist! But they turned her into a news reporter. They broke down her mentality. She's now very stupid. She gets caught all the time. The original April, she was strong and independent. The 87 Turtles, that's feminist propaganda. I don't know. It's about as smart as what he's saying.
This series, it's nonsense, and from a mythological standpoint, it's just another symptom of the degradation of the types of stories our
You're a Christian. You should be concerning yourself less with myth and more with truth.
Culture is putting forth to our children. That's a sad thing. So those are my thoughts on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, what are some great comic runs? What are other great sources of good, iconic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stories that we can seek out in this time of their deconstruction?
Rise of the TMNT, which, by the way, isn't a deconstruction. You're an idiot.
and infantilizing and so forth. I will be back soon with more. But wait, don't go anywhere yet. As I was editing this video, I just noticed that not only did Nickelodeon release the trailer, they've also released the first episode on YouTube. I steeled my stomach and watched it, and it is so much worse than I thought it would be. Everything I've said in the trailer review is absolutely relevant, but not only did they remove our feminine mother figure in April O'Neil, just to place a sassy sister can do it for herself type character in, they completely demolished Splinter. So no more father figure. He's a ridiculous character that the turtles themselves do not respect. He's laughable, he's oafish, basically just seen as a fat old man who likes to watch television.
Because he's a traumatized old man. And Splinter has to wind up working through that trauma with the help of his family. Like, I know that, look, personally, my favorite version of Splinter is 2012 Splinter, because he was the perfect balance of, I am here to teach you how to hurt people, and I'm here to hurt you if you get out of line because I'm your dad. He was the perfect version of Splinter to me. But this one, while I had my issues with him at first, and I didn't know what they were doing with him, they wound up going like at a completely different depth of direction with him. When you see Splinter, you never look at him and think he's troubled. You never think that. But this version, he looks oafish, laughable. But you find out the entire reason why he's like that is because of the weight of responsibility that was put on him at way too young an age about something way out of his league that he threw off because he lost his mother over it. Like, this is a man who lost his mother when he was still a child, and it has traumatized him. You can find it here on YouTube. You can get the seasons on Nickelodeon. They have them for sale here to where you can get seasons of it. It's pretty good. Don't worry, we're almost done with this video. We've got like one more to go before we get to Mr. Enter, because I know it's what most people are probably here for.
This is an abomination. Not only
You're a Christian, you should know that this isn't an abomination.
an absolute abomination to the world of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
A lot of people thought the 87 Turtles was an abomination to the 84 one, and still do. I just want you to be aware of that. A lot of people don't like the 87 Turtles at all. In fact, Peter Laird's one of them.
Who the characters are in it and everything they stand for.
Well, TNT was my favorite version, not alliteration. The 2003s, honestly.
But it completely flies in the face of everything you want to teach a child. Don't respect elders. Don't worry about having any kind of father figure. You don't need that. You don't really even need a mother figure as long as you have a sassy female in your life who shows you that women can do things for themselves.
Is there something wrong with women doing things for themselves? I mean, my wife is like a biologist. She didn't need my help to be one.
Then just go out, make up the rules as you see fit. Don't worry about preparing. It's all good.
Oh, I am not looking at this man's comments. I'm not here to get that angry tonight.
Attitude will carry you all the way through in life. I feel like I was watching the Thundercats roar
Hey, Mike.
trailer again, thinking this has to be a joke. Clearly this is a joke. Please tell me this is a joke. I'm going to hear this Saturday Night Live music at some point. But it's not a joke. People actually think this is going to be some wonderful show and it's some great art worth hyping up for children. This is nonsense. So
You have no idea what you're talking about.
good luck, world. But as you were hearing me say a moment ago, I will be back soon. And until then, keep
Bitmoji's garbage. All right, so let's try his next one. This is one he calls the argument, because he's gonna own them darn liberals by telling them they're wrong about Ninja Turtles. I thought the 2000 comics or 2000 Titans flew in the face of the comics. Took me a while to warm up. Yeah, it is a definite departure. Kecker's boy. How'd you like how they changed the relationship between Slade and Terra? Man, what were they thinking in the comics? Oh my god, that was terrible.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk more about the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the new Nickelodeon series.
Hello, yes, I'm Professor Geek, and I'm here to grift some more.
Which is just atrocious. I've already made one video on that, giving a general review of the series and the approach it takes. Everything from the character designs to the characterizations of the so-called heroes. Today, though, I want to do another one of my videos that examines the arguments being made within the conversation, across YouTube, Twitter in general, whatever. Just like with the She-Ra series, we see the one creep up a lot. It's a cartoon. You are taking this way too seriously. Why do you care so much? Well, just the fact that someone's taken the time to ask me why I care proves that...
Mike, I sped up the audio because I don't like this guy and I don't want to suffer through it too long. He's very long-winded. He's one of those guys that talks all day and says nothing.
It's worth taking the time to care about, because that person is taking the time to ask me why I care to take the time to criticize it. So that's a silly first-ditch attempt at trying to dissuade people from criticizing the series.
You know, this time I actually don't disagree. That whole "it's a cartoon," it's not a good argument to make. You need to actually have something substantive. Because saying it's a cartoon, why do you care? You've already defeated that because you clearly care about a cartoon. It's one of the biggest counter arguments I see when I talk about things I don't care for, like, say, Roar specifically. And I say this with Kecker's Boy in the chat, who's a fan of Roar, and that's fine. But people come at me with, well, it's made for kids, why do you care? And my response is, if it's made for kids and I shouldn't care, why do you care? You're my age. That type of stuff. Cartoons, despite how people tend to treat them, are an art form, and any art can and should be criticized and critiqued. That's how that works. I am not obligated to be quiet just so other people don't get to hear that somebody doesn't like something. And just in the same direction, people who like something are not obligated to be silent because I don't like it.
Secondly, cartoons such as hero fiction, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that have been around quite a long time, have their own mythologies, and mythology affects people.
Yes, the 84 comics certainly affected a lot of people, and so did the 87 cartoon, just probably not in the way you automatically would assume.
Not just TV, they're not just stories. Mythology has an effect on psychology and culture.
Well, I mean, you're right. They do have an effect, but I wouldn't say it's mythology. On top of that, the entire Western world is not going to fall to pieces because of one Ninja Turtle cartoon you don't like. It's already been in pieces for a very long time for reasons that you probably defend.
This is not hard to understand. Another argument that's leveled at any critiques of the series quite a bit is that they're just teenagers. So in my first video, I talked about how there's simply no focus on responsibility at all. The focus is on comedy. There's no desire to teach or provide any sort of character as a role model or anything like that.
I mean, that's not true either, because like the Turtles constantly show, like teenagers, they look up to characters on TV, specifically characters they think are heroes, and try to emulate them because they are children.
And people say they're teenagers, for crying out loud. They're teenagers. Of course they don't need to be responsible. And, times change. This is our teenagers today.
Real quick to Venkman, they're the hardhead releases.
This is an absurd argument. Yes, they're teenagers. You know what part of their name is? Ninja. You don't think maybe training in ninjutsu promotes a little bit of responsibility?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's a lot of kids that go to martial art classes. Even if we were to... Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use a real-world example, since Professor Geek here is so obsessed with fiction that he can't use reality. Type 1 in the chat if you have heard of Miyamoto Musashi. Okay, so Miyamoto Musashi, for the few who do not know, is the most well-known samurai, if not swordsman, ever known. Most well-known. Some people can argue if he's the best or not. There's a lot of things to take in there, and this isn't Death Battle. But Miyamoto Musashi had defeated over 60 men in duels by the time he was 30, right? He was extremely accomplished, well-known swordsman, downright mean. When he was the Turtles' age, there was another samurai who came into his village and put up a sign for challengers to list that they wanted to fight him. And this boy listed his name there. Now, this upset his uncle who was raising him. And he brought Musashi to apologize to the man to get the sign taken down. And when the samurai did not show, what's the word I'm looking for? Astuteness in his situation, Musashi grabbed the sign and beat the man to death. And when his uncle demanded an explanation, he said if he was a samurai, he shouldn't have died from that, essentially. He should have been more prepared. Musashi was not being responsible in that situation. He won! He unquestionably won! But he was not being responsible. He acted brashly, both in signing his name and in randomly attacking. While he was a great swordsman, the dude wasn't known for being the most socially responsible person. So here we have a man who is very well trained. His father was Munasai. He was very well trained. And he was horribly irresponsible in a lot of ways. A lot of people with a lot of heavy training are irresponsible. Like, have you met a United States Marine? They are some of the most highly trained people on this planet, but you get them around like some small-scale explosives, they will become the most irresponsible people off duty. I promise you that. Let's continue.
And self-control that might even overcome teenage instincts. I mean, come on, this is silly.
No, that's not how that works. Like, no. You clearly have never had anybody training in martial arts. Martial arts teaches you how to hurt people. It does not magically, in and of itself, teach you responsibility. A good teacher can, but you have to be open to it.
Secondly, you've taken established heroic figures who were there to be role models for children and broken them down into irresponsible comedic.
Show me where it says the original Ninja Turtles was there to be a role model for children. Thundercats did that. He-Man did that. Show me where Ninja Turtles is stated as that. They can be. The originals could be, and often were, but that's not their purpose.
Figures.
Their purpose was to entertain.
That's not acceptable. That's quite a different thing from simply writing a new cartoon about some silly, irresponsible characters just for comedic value. And then this idea about times change, but teenagers don't change.
Yes, they do. For example, let's go ahead and use Japan again. In Japan, at 15, a child samurai, would have something called Genpuku, which is a ceremony that brought you into being an adult. A 15-year-old in Edo period Japan is not going to be the same as a 15-year-old here in 2022 in the United States. Teenagers absolutely do change. They change in their priorities, they change in their lifestyles, they change in what they prioritize. 200 years ago, you know what a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old prioritize? Not dying. You know what they prioritize now? Am I getting enough hits on TikTok?
The technology, the pressures, the effects around them certainly change, but basic human progression through levels of maturity is strikingly similar across history, at least within a generally similar societal structure.
Citation needed, evidence required.
In other words, we're not living in a time where a 13-year-old is considered an adult and would certainly act far more responsible than a 13-year-old in today's world or something.
So you just destroyed your own argument with the same one I just made. Yeah, you're real smart there, buddy.
That's not the kind of times changing from the 80s, 90s to now that we're talking about here. So it's ridiculous to say that times have changed now.
No, actually, teenagers in the 80s were probably a lot more irresponsible than they are now, because we had underage drinking epidemic, we had a drug epidemic. I mean, are you stupid?
Teenagers are supposed to be irresponsible. That's nonsense.
Why am I asking, are you stupid? Of course he's stupid.
Another argument is that this series is about their development. They're going to develop into the heroes, and that's what it's trying to show. Give it a chance. Stop being so negative right off the bat. How are they going to develop? The thing that kills that argument is the series' characterization of Splinter, and I talked about that in my last videos.
Yeah, except for the fact that you were factually wrong. If Splinter just stayed a couch potato the whole time, you might have an argument there about Splinter. And despite what you might think, there's a lot of kids with horrifically bad parents that turn out very well. They turn out extremely responsible. They wind up being essentially the opposite of their parents. Is your argument that kids will automatically be what their parents are? Because if so, I hope you never have them. Thank you, Papa Huds 269 for a $2 super chat. Deconstructing this clown convoy. Absolutely well. Kecker's boy, I believe he's older than me.
Splinter is just an oafish buffoon. There's no wisdom to him. There's no caring father aspect to him. The turtles don't respect him. He doesn't really give a crap about them. He's just there to watch TV and eat.
At first, yes.
How are they going to develop into the heroes that we know and love?
By 2 seasons worth of actual storytelling and world building and fleshing out their characters.
The show clearly isn't built toward that, at least in any sort of believable and effective way that would resonate with children. We often see people as well try to cram all critiques into a you're just a racist kind of idea, and they talk about April O'Neil as the young black girl now.
Probably because you literally... you idiot. You made that argument. You made that argument by the dumbest possible way you could have stated this. Like, holy crap. I can't believe how dumb you are that you don't even see that. You called her a diversity quota character, essentially.
And they'll bring up that April O'Neil was originally black in the original comics or something like that. First of all,
I mean, that is wrong. She wasn't black in the original comics.
April O'Neil's race in the cartoon is just a scratch on the surface of people's problems with this series.
People's, you mean yours? And other people who didn't watch the cartoon and genuinely don't care. You know, that's one of my biggest issues when it came to this glut of new reboots coming out, is 90% of the people you saw on YouTube arguing against it and hating it don't care dick all about the actual property itself. You have any idea how many mushmouth morons came out to complain about Roar that not once cared about the original cartoon? And if you want evidence to that, go take a look at the type of views they get when they were crying about this versus the type of views I get when I talk about factually what happened in the original series. If they cared about that, they wouldn't be watching that channel, they'd be watching mine. And that's not me here sucking on sour grapes because, I don't get enough views. No, that's me pointing out a factual statement. They don't care about the original cartoon. Thank you, David, for the $5 super chat. Professor Geek needs to be beaten with somebody with a sign, Musashi style. Maybe within an inch, but not quite to that point. Is he part of the fandom menace? He probably wants to be.
She could feasibly be any race in the world as long as she's written correctly, with a relationship to the turtles of a feminine presence that resonates properly in the mythology.
There's nothing wrong with her feminine presence. I'm sorry, is she not going after enough boys for you? Is that it? Is she not being captured enough? Is she too capable? Is that the problem here?
Did in the original cartoon. People seem
the original cartoon, April got captured like every other day.
So quick to think that the first incarnation of anything is clearly the best, or that's the standard, that's the rule. That's not the case with mythology. The first incarnation is often awkward. The first incarnation is yet to be developed by an audience. This is the case from people telling stories back in the day around campfires or whatever, to comic book writers certainly, and to today when it comes to films and whatnot. The first incarnations of a character or a story that's going to develop and resonate within society certainly contains the DNA of what it will become, but it has to be shaped by the public perception a bit. Superman did, for example. The original Superman...
Okay, what's your argument about that in the Turtles? Because the original Turtles was the 1984 comic, and I loved the 84 comic for the most part. I would never give that to a child. Maybe the first issue, but they get... Oh, man, they get wild in there. Like, there's an entire storyline where Casey and Raph just gun people down, and it gets brutal and ugly. Like, the original cartoon, definitely for kids. Fantastic. The original comic, I would never say that's for kids. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't.
Man was more of a trickster, couldn't even fly. I mean, that's well documented. That's not the iconic Superman you think about when we say the word Superman anymore, because that had to develop.
He wasn't a trickster. He was a dick to villains, which is fine. You don't even know why he flies.
Within those first few years. It had to be molded into what the public needed. I've heard people try to talk about how great the animation is in terms of the actual animation of movement and whatnot. I don't understand much about that and how...
Yeah, it's pretty clear you don't understand anything about animation. That's very painfully obvious.
Animation is created. I know the art style is simply lazy, though. But...
No. And you know what? Here's the hot take, and it's going to get me in trouble with certain people I know. The modern Rise is a lot more detailed than the original designs for the 87 cartoon. Every character is different in design fundamentally. I like the original 87 design. I do. But if we're talking about which one takes more effort, I'd have to say the newer one probably does in terms of design, but only because it's able to build off the original. The original designs were just fine the way they were. My only issue with the original designs is that the toys weren't accurate enough.
But even if the animation is top-notch and just wonderful to be respected on every level, that doesn't save the mythology. That doesn't...
You don't know what the mythology of this series is because you didn't actually watch it. You watched one episode, thought it built into your cognitive bias, and you dropped it because baby boy angry.
Doesn't save the presentation of these characters or the story by any means. If the animation is great, use it for...
Because you know what? I'm not going to sit here and wax philosophically about every single misstep Roar made, because here's what I did. I said I didn't think it would appeal to me, didn't care for the direction they obviously were going in by their own admission, and said, you know what? I'm not going to watch it. That's why any other time since the initial, glut, where I talked about Roar, I talked about how we should respond, and the movie ball was wrong. I've talked about Roar twice after that. Once when it was initially released, because again, it caused a flurry of stupid that I felt needed to address on both sides, and when they had the crossover with Teen Titans Go. Because that I genuinely found disrespectful. Not in the way that a lot of people did where they read into the fact that Panthro's skull was there as though the guy who put it there is somehow hating on the voice actor for Panthro because he died. No, this is a conspiracy. No, you're an idiot. I just didn't watch Roar. I didn't do 20 different videos constantly dogging on it, hate watching it, because what good does that do me? But I'll tell you what, and I said this, and I say it tongue-in-cheek and jokingly, I will review Roar for $1 million.
For an example for animation classes, but that doesn't save the series in any way. So just a short video, but I wanted to address some of those points because I see the same thing leveled again and again and again.
Yeah, too bad you can't actually argue against any of them.
And of course you can't sit there and respond to every little argument that's made against it, because a lot of people, even when they're making these arguments, they've simply already decided that they're going to support this no matter what. It becomes an identity issue, and it's not really about having a back and forth. But when you see the same kinds of things over and over and over again...
Rise made all the turtles like extra cute and appealing, especially Donnie and April. Never loved designs as much as them in a good while. I actually like the designs of the turtles in every cartoon iteration. We don't talk about Next Mutation, obviously, but still. Would you review Roar for the U.S. lottery if you won it? No.
They do merit some sort of response. So that will be the end of my take on the subject, unless more developments happen with the series or whatnot. I'm certainly not watching it or following it or anything. I think it's interesting that the original 1987 series has been pulled from Amazon. You can't even order the original discs. You have to find them used. And I don't know the specific reasons behind that, but I think it's telling that suddenly you're unable to obtain the original incarnations that resonated with so many people. I don't know about the 2003 series.
You could literally order it on DVD. Stupid. All right, so had enough of this idiot. Let's go to a different idiot of a different caliber of stupidity. Can we set up a fundraiser for the Roar review? Oh my god, you people. Yes, you can, for all I care. If manga, comic, fan games give us fans thousands of dollars to watch High Guardian Spy Ship. I think Becky, I appreciate the sincerity, but I think you need to look at Manga Commons numbers versus mine. There is no way. Venkman, thank you for the $5 super chat. Off-top question, but what would happen if the boogeyman from the real Ghostbusters met Mum-Ra or even the bird? He'd probably be a minion of Mum-Ra. He'd probably run screaming from the bird. There's things about the bird that people do not know. They do not know. All right, so take a breath. Professor Geek is, if you're in combat, it's like having a frag grenade thrown at you. You can hopefully avoid it, and if you're able to, the damage will be minimum unless you literally jump on top of it. And again, that's if you see it coming, obviously. Mr. Enter stupidity is like a nuclear bomb. Unless you are like several hundreds of miles away, and even then you're going to be affected. So I would pray for patience, but the Bible's clear that patience comes through trial. So there are times I had to pray for calmness, because if I prayed for strength, I would use it to destroy people. Yes.
Excuse me, sirs. Can you direct us to the local science fiction convention that we are currently dressed for?
Alright, I'm on the home stretch. The worst is behind me. So what's next?
Dude, that intro for Rise is like Kino. Well animated, a doggone catchy tune.
Teenage Mutant Ninja
And the reason the tune's catchy is because it builds on the original. Amazing.
Turtles. Wait, didn't I already review this?
What? I can't make a joke in the middle of the craziest thing ever? That's how I cope.
Oh, my mistake. This show has absolutely nothing to do with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
You're an idiot, Enter.
Let's see if I can describe this one. I'm gonna tell you a story, and it's vaguely true, about buck-kicking turtles who know Kung Fu. April is their nerdy
They know Kung Fu now. Kung Fu, the Chinese martial art.
human guy. The others try and save the day from an army of mutants and other cliches. Actually, you know what? I'm being a little bit unfair here. Kung Fu Dino Posse knows more about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles than the show called Rise of the Teenage Mutant.
Wait, hold on, but what you just said there essentially describes the original cartoon too. And the 2012 cartoon. And part of the 2003 cartoon. Intro, why are you dumb? Like, can you just do like a modicum of research before you start raging about something?
Mutant Ninja Turtles. I said that the 2012 version was a really good entry point to the series, because before this marathon I hadn't really been acquainted with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
How are you, like, in your late 20s and not know the Ninja Turtles? Like, seriously, that's not a haha, you're stupid. That's like, how? That's like saying John Caulfield in the chat doesn't know what Pokemon is.
Now that I have, I can tell you that this series was either made for people who haven't seen the original, don't like anything about the original, or it's been made by people who either haven't seen the original or don't like it.
You've never seen the original. Thank you, Papa Huz, $5 super chat. Give Mr. Winter them hands. Convoy, it's long overdue. You're not wrong.
Even if I had never seen anything else Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles related, I probably would not like this show. Because this show reminds me of a lot of bad reboots. Most notably, Teen Titans Go.
How? Teen Titans Go and Rise are not even close in terms of their writing, quality, or animation.
which the show is compared to a lot, and it makes it very haunting to me to...
Ninjutsu and Kung Fu are the same thing. Enter makes the Shogun and Harlem from The Last Dragon look credible. Oh my god. Yes, but you know of Pokemon.
How influential Teen Titans Go was. Take a show that has a mixture of very serious moments and comedy, and then you just pretend that the series was never serious, and couldn't possibly be serious no matter what.
This is service level stupidity that he thinks people are dumb enough to buy into. Ah, the child messages me. What does the child want? The Opal. Thank you, Opal. Very cool. Send me a meme.
Ridiculous this concept tried to take itself seriously ever. I mean,
the name of the series is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They all take themselves seriously, just in different directions. Like in the original 87 cartoon, they did fourth wall breaks pretty regularly. They mentioned at one point, "Oh, I hope we wrap this up soon, dude." Of course, it may not have been Michelangelo. My memory's a bit fading. Like, this isn't a two-part episode. Something along those lines. Michelangelo quoting an episode number, although it was wrong. I'm not explaining it to you. I'm explaining it to them. Shredder literally talking to the audience. I have not seen... actually, no, I did see ER's review. Kind of missing the point.
I mean, how seriously could you really take Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Oh, I don't know. About as seriously as you could take a man dressing up as a bat and fighting a clown. You want...
That's... The series takes itself seriously, though. You're stupid.
I want to know one of the biggest reasons that people have been so hostile towards shows like Teen Titans Go and Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? It's because this is not what superhero shows are anymore. They haven't been this way for over a decade now. Throughout most of the 20th century and even up to the early 2000s.
Over a decade, remember? Superhero shows don't exist. Wait, does that mean Batman the Brave and the Bold didn't exist? Because I like that show.
Superheroes were usually campy and corny. There were some exceptions like Batman the Animated Series, but those were, generally speaking, exceptions.
No, they weren't exceptions. God, you're dumb.
Superheroes would fight ridiculous bad guys and shout one-liners.
X-Men existed, then Superman, then Justice League, then Justice League Unlimited. Spider-Man, the animated series. Spider-Man on MTV. Spectacular Spider-Man. I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. Anything in fiction, again, I keep saying this, and people like Enter apparently never pay attention. Anything in fiction is ridiculous. Anything. Your favorite thing in fiction, when compared to cold hard reality, is ridiculous. And it doesn't matter how hardcore it is. A man whose family was gunned down by the mob, waging bloody vengeance against all crime, and somehow constantly getting away, is ridiculous. A man who was traumatized by a demon apocalypse, or demon eclipse, that ate most of his friends and traumatized another one, seeking vengeance with a giant sword, is, by nature, ridiculous. That's what makes it fiction, and that's what makes it interesting.
The whole appeal was their powers or their personalities, or in the...
No, the appeal is the story. This is the type of person who sits there and says that Superman's boring while not reading a single comic.
Worst case scenarios, their outfits. You weren't really supposed to think deeply about their implications or the kind of world that they found themselves in.
Oh man, somebody's never read anything written by Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison would blow Mr. Enter's brain apart.
Like I said, with some exceptions. Then something changed along the way. We had series like Teen Titans or Justice League, which took themselves more seriously and treated these
Justice League treated itself a lot more seriously than Teen Titans. Teen Titans, and this is going to probably upset some people, which I tend to do regularly, Teen Titans tried way too hard to be random anime.
Heroes more as characters.
There was an entire episode where while Robin went out to train, his teammates dressed up in his outfits and lounged around the place. If they did that episode matching 1-to-1 in Teen Titans Go, people would lose their minds over it, saying how disrespectful it is to the original cartoon.
Rather than ambiguous forces of good, or something like that. This would come to its apex with Nolan's The Dark Knight, which permanently changed the genre of what a superhero is.
No! What? What? Are you stupid? Enter, of course he's stupid. Why am I asking that? No! The Dark Knight didn't change what superheroes are, or what they're to be expected of. It may have changed how the movie industry treats them, which, again, another hot take, I'm not fond of Nolan's Batman films. Well, I'm glad that your Mumm-Ra's okay, Chester. But, what? Have you read Frank Miller's The Dark Knight? Have you read Year One? Have you read The Killing Joke? Have you read anything of Batman from the 70s to now? What are you going on about? Have you read All-Star Superman? Have you read Superman for All Seasons?
Nowadays, shows like Teen Titans Go and Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles don't just look corny, but they look like an active regression. It's like a AAA video
How would you know when you don't care about Ninja Turtles and never paid attention to it before 2012?
game coming out today with Atari graphics. They're the equivalent of a 30-year-old who doesn't want to get a job because he's too obsessed with the stuff that he used to do as a kid.
So like you. Is that what this is? You see this as a reflection of you and that's why you hate it? Amazing, bro. I don't like the Dark Knight trilogy for the same reason why I don't like most, if not all, superhero live-action films. Any film that tries to take a superhero and make him realistic misses the point that is a freaking comic book. While Batman is my favorite superhero character, this is a dude whose best friend is an alien, essentially god. His other teammate is an Amazonian goddess. Another one's able to run so fast he beats literal teleportation. And he fights one dude who can turn into anything because he's clay, an immortal dude who takes dips in Lazarus pits, a guy who fell into a vat of acid, a bioterrorist, and a dude obsessed with fear. While I love Batman because he is a superhero that has no superpowers, his world isn't realistic to begin with. Never adapt superhero films in a way that makes them look realistic. It's also why, again, hot take, I don't like the MCU. Any superhero film, any, should be animated. Period.
And still sleeps in Star Wars pajamas. It's embarrassing. It's been said that a lot of people would have a problem if the 80s cartoon came out after the 90s one or the 2000 one, being seen as...
There was no... The 80s cartoon was the 90s cartoon. God, you're dumb.
...as corny or cheesy. And yeah, they would. Rightfully so. People would also have a problem if the next generation of MLP was more like G3. Or hell, even G1. And they...
G1 My Little Pony was, like, more hardcore. I mean, you know, real quick, David, thank you for $5 super chat. Mr. Enter needs to be beaten by someone with a sign, Musashi style. Yeah, I saw that earlier. G1 My Little Pony, their Tyrek was a dude who turned the horses into dragons to pull his chariot of darkness. I'm sorry, that's metal. That is like 80s rock band cover metal. And for the record, guys, he's pointing to My Little Pony because apparently Enter started as a My Little Pony reviewer, which should tell you all you need to know about him first and foremost.
They probably should. Alright, let's get back on topic here. I do not think that this is a good interpretation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise.
How would you know? You've only seen one cartoon of it. You never even read the original read the original comics, Enter. Then come back to me.
Now, I did say that the 2012 version did change...
That's Mr. Geek. Fair point. So I guess both of them. We need to get a bigger sign.
...change up some things from the source material, and I am okay with the principle of changing things for an interpretation. As
Batman Baby Mom's dad is a 7,000-year-old Egyptian super mafia boss, so realistic. Up, and a ninja death cultist.
long as you do it respectfully and with purpose. Some things don't age as well as others, and the context of certain aspects of a piece of media can change over time. The problem is...
Enter. I know you're a hardcore My Little Pony fan. My Little Pony was not a respectful adaptation of the original show, or heck, the original toy line, where they looked closer to actual horses. You're not consistent. That's the problem with all of you people. None of you are consistent.
When you make changes haphazardly, or for no reason at all. Not all of the changes in this series are bad per se, and many of them may be based on my personal preference. One of the changes that I'm not so keen on is the weapons that the Turtles use traditionally have been changed up in the series for far more futuristic devices. You know, like a yo-yo. I do think that making the series seem like
What?
it's more futuristic is probably on the right track, although it
They're not, the weapons aren't futuristic, they're mystic.
does give me a Lunatics Unleashed feel, which is not a good thing.
Now that's just insulting.
But it's something that I could see working within the Ninja Turtles franchise. Changing up their weapons, on the other hand, no, I think that's an outright disrespectful change. The weapons that the Turtles use are iconic, and not to mention...
They can be, but even in the original cartoon, they changed Michelangelo's weapon because they got tired of having to re-edit it for the UK because, for some reason, swords, fine. Size, fine. Bow staff, fine. Can't have nunchucks, though. Well, what if kids make their own and hurt people? Dude, when I was a kid, I made nunchucks. And you know how long they lasted? 5 seconds. Because the minute you try to do the Ninja Turtle Michelangelo thing of swinging them, making a helicopter spin with them, they go flying. And then mom gets mad because you broke something. Like, you can make the Donatello bow staff as a kid by grabbing a mop handle. Boom. But no, that's what made them mad. Nunchucks. But yeah, let's hear about the Turtles' iconic weapons. Let me see if you can even pronounce them correctly.
Mention they're ninjas. I kind of think that ninjas should use weapons that are considered traditionally for ninjas.
So no weapons then, because ninjas traditionally used poisons or just snuck around to get information. What Hollywood and pop culture calls a ninja is not what a ninja was. And if you're talking about somebody who's just a versatile individual, any weapon would work. Mr. Enter's editors, I think they're all jokes.
Take a look at an equivalent. Samurai
Friendship is about nunchucks.
Jack. He's flung far into the future, and he has plenty of opportunities to use all manner of futuristic weaponry, like guns and rockets. Sometimes he will use them, but it's usually when there's no better option. Most of the time, his preference is in his sword, regardless of the magic within it. And this only changes up when he's broken and he loses his sword.
No, he primarily uses the magic sword because it's a magic sword that can cut through anything. And if you're going to go on, Mr. Enter, about weapons they should use, what is the first word in Jack's cartoon? Samurai Jack. Samurai wore 2 swords. It was literally a symbol of their status. They had a wakizashi and an uchigatana. Paired, they were called daisho. They were not ever to be seen in public without both of them on. The only times they did not have them on is obviously when they slept in bed or when they walked into somebody's house and leave their longsword, their uchigatana, in the foyer, always keeping the wakizashi on them. That is a samurai's traditional weapons. In the Edo period, original samurai, called Mononofu, their primary weapon was a kyu, a bow. Like archery bow. You don't know dick what you're talking about. And if you want to get real technical, really technical, compared to Jack's size versus his sword, he's not even wielding an uchigatana, he's wielding sometimes an okatana or an odachi. The uchigatana stood about 40 inches long, essentially from their feet to their hip in length. Samurai Jack's sword is usually depicted as much longer, primarily for cinematic purposes, but you don't know dick about weaponry.
I said that in most versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2012 version included, I had a bit of difficulty figuring out who was who based on visuals alone. Different
Do the colors not show you?
color masks and weapons wasn't enough of a distinction.
How? I'm sorry, they're not bright enough for you like your My Little Ponies?
Rise does fix this, but I think it goes a bit too far into the opposite direction. These redesigns, they probably would have been great if this was the first incarnation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ever, but
Oh man, if he gets real confused about the colors and designs in the 2012 cartoon of all things, never show this man the comics. I take that back. He will never understand. Thank you, Hinata-chan. Years of practice.
after 30 years,
And a sensei with literal patience.
a change like this is jarring. It's just too much too fast. Like, I would be okay if we got here eventually, but it feels like there was a few steps missing along the way. Not only that, but the personalities are heavily flanderized, at least compared to the 2012 version.
How are they flanderized when they're not the same?
Unfortunately, they're not the only characters that have changed, and they're not the characters
And then the Meiji era happened and made the samurai obsolete. Well, technically they would have been obsolete before then. They were very much so behind.
that have changed in the worst way.
Yeah, but Samurai Jack was trained with different weapons, traveled around the world, multiple fighting techniques and other skills. This is true. Very true. Splinter's design is ugly. I mean, I'm not even going to argue that one. It is not a pleasant design to look at.
What the fuck did you do to Splinter? In every other version, he's this wise mentor. In this version, he's every fucking dumbass dad. Every bumbling mentor old drunk that you've seen a million goddamn times.
No? But I think you're more scared that you're going to be like him in 10 years. No, Splinter's not the dumb dad. Like, if anything, he's actually fairly smart. He's just traumatized.
If you want to change it, whatever. I can understand that. Why would you want to change something relatively unique into something so goddamn cliche?
Wait, hold on. How is having the wise instructional teacher that's your sensei unique? And again, I love Splinter. Like, he's great, like, in general. But he's not very unique. He's pretty stereotypical of senseis.
It's the exact same problem I have with the professor from the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot.
I can't speak to the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot because I never watched it because I'm not a Powerpuff Girl fan. But still.
Change, whatever. Why do you want to change something into something that's been done so many times before?
This version of Splinter has never been done before, and the type of character he is not common. This is not Homer Simpson. This is not Peter Griffin. This is not Stan, whatever his last name is, Smith. This is Hamato Yoshi. This is Lujitsu.
Something that has been overdone since the original came out. But no, we need to model our show after every terrible cartoon reboot. And then we have April O'Neil, who they gave a race swap in this show because this show is progressive like that.
No, like, they had to tell you this. While the original April O'Neil wasn't black, there have been a black April O'Neils. Like, there's a large mastery of different Ninja Turtle stories that have existed well before this one. Some of which make drastic changes.
Even though they gave her an incredibly stereotypical way of talking. Like, to the point where some people could probably find it offensive. And they also gave her the personality of Scrappy-Doo. We've gone from somebody who was...
No, they didn't give her the personality of Scrappy-Doo. Are you stupid? They gave her the personality of... Okay, for those of you who are My Little Pony, like, content creator fans, this version of April is essentially Kichi. That's who this April is. It's Kichi. Me existing is progressive. You're welcome for making your chat progressive, Lio. I'm sorry, Bijumaru. I beat you to that because I'm Hispanic. Therefore, I am the progressive. Ha-ha!
Relatively intelligent, and who at least was able to help the Turtles with their plans, to someone who rushes in stupidly and fights mutant combatants while bragging about it, and then getting punted by them.
Yeah, because she's a teenager. I mean, adults do that too.
Because this show is progressive like that. Going deep into this kind of progressivism is a video in
Mr. Enter makes me want to throttle something, so I feel you, Rayla.
and of itself. Let's just say that this one is April O'Neil in name only.
Yes, Sketchy, I am Hispanic. I'm sorry I don't... What's the old joke? I'm sorry, should I get the sombrero and maracas?
She is nothing like any other interpretation, and not in a good way either. In the first incarnation,
But you've only seen one. How would you know?
she was an assistant scientist. Then they made her a news reporter. Then they made her a teenage girl. And now she just tags along with the Turtles for no established reason. Read the...
You don't have to have necessarily an established reason if it's played through. I mean, the original Darkwing Duck cartoon, Hunker Muddlefoot knew who Darkwing Duck was. Was it ever explained? No. Did they ever give a reason? No. It just was. And we accepted it, and we understood it, and went about with it.
the comics or watch a better show, I guess, if you want the answer. Then again,
If I ever take any sort of advice from Mr. Enter, shoot me.
and considering April is different in each incarnation, I guess the only requirement to be April O'Neil is to wear yellow. Look, everyone, it's April O'Neil! And
This character's still better written than you are, Enter.
hell, even by that criteria, it shows that she's a half-assed April O'Neil, because she's only wearing half yellow. But let's put all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff aside. How does this show fare on its own? How is it if you've never heard of the franchise before? It doesn't. The animation is really, really bad. It tries to do comic book style.
What? Okay. People clown on Enter a lot because he gets real mad about dumb things. If you ever need a reason to not listen to Mr. Enter, that's it. It is animated really bad. No, it's not animated bad. It's animated very well. Why is it that so many people who review animation know dick all about animation? And that's the thing. Most of these people will go on, well, I like this show, I don't like this show. I like these characters, I don't like these characters. They don't talk about the animation. The actual point of watching it is that it is animated. They don't talk about the frame rate. They don't talk about the characters in terms of movement. They don't talk about how a scene is filmed. They do not talk about how it's composited. They don't talk about anything of it. They just talk about whether or not they like it.
Like the 2012 version. But because they do it poorly, it looks really stilted.
Cool. Demonstrate how they do it poorly. This is the biggest problem with people like Enter, is they make statements without providing evidence for it.
often loop frames of animation, and sometimes it looks like there's frames missing. It's a poor effort masked as...
Are you going to show some of it? Are you going to detail it? Are you going to give us any sort of evidence to peg onto? No, just take his word for it. He's Mr. Enter, of course.
Stylization.
How did you get 259,000 subs?
But no, the real crime here is the writing. In the first episode, when Leonardo says they need something, and Splinter thinks it's a joke, he says, "I thought purple was the funny one." You know, like he didn't adopt them and name them all after his favorite Renaissance artists. I thought purple was the funny one. He calls someone who he sees as his son by the color of his mask.
Yeah, a lot of parents give their kids nicknames. I'm so sorry. I know your parents weren't good, and I mean that genuinely, because I didn't know that until now. But not every parent are your parents. When can we expect the Thundercat Wave 2 review? In a couple weeks, because I've got a lot of... I wanted to make it as well quality as my Wave 3 review, so I've got a lot of scripting and a lot of stop motion to do on it.
This show can bite me. I'm not the biggest fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's...
Then you shouldn't speak to it. He gets 2,000 subs for being acerbic. True.
Shows and reboots like this that make me glad that I'm not. Because even though I'm not, I feel the disgrace that this show is to the franchise. And yeah, I hear that it gets better. But with how the beginning is, there's no reason to stick around. Korra got better too, but I didn't like that show as a whole. And it never really made what the first season gave us worth it. And considering that that's the Avatar franchise, you got a fat chance in hell. Especially since the writing in season 1 is constantly like this. And now I'm just gonna give you a My Neighbor Totoro reference.
You come from a fandom that obsesses over references to the point to where they tried to make them independent characters. And then when the show didn't show them as a character version that your fandom wanted, they lost their minds. Sit down.
What does it mean? Nothing! It's in this review for as much reason as it was in the show. It's just there for 2 seconds for no reason, because that's comedy.
More than likely, it's characters or people who worked on the show.
So I guess we can add double rainboom to the things that this show reminds me of, and that's not for the show's benefits. Alright,
I don't care about My Little Pony. Just go back to reviewing those cartoons, since that's what you like. Just go back to being a brony reviewer. Maybe you won't suck as bad anymore. I won't watch it, but still.
hard part's over, one more to go, let's do this. What's the last show?
I'm in the big city with my big family.
Oh, heck no. I am not touching the Loud House. For 2 reasons. Number 1, there's nothing about it that appeals to me. It looks obnoxious and irritating. And 2, I am so not concerned with a cartoon made by a man who wrote an incestuous comic before all this. And secondly, apparently got fired for sexual harassment. Not interested. So goodbye, Enter. Go to church. I said goodbye. I said good day, sir. All right, so we have watched modern people talking about modern turtles. Now we're going to watch old people, even back in the 90s, talking about the OG turtles. Now, I know this isn't everybody's favorite thing, but these are people attacking it from a religious standpoint. And you all know how I feel about these types of things. Thoughts on Pie Guy Rules. Who is that again? I can't remember who that is. Okay. Back to the Past with Samurai Jack. Yes, okay, so these people are allegedly Christians who are really, really, really mad about the original Turtles. So let's go ahead and delve into this.
Well, you guys certainly did a thorough job going out and exploring the toy market in the area. The first thing I noticed looking at the table is the abundance of these...
Now, I want you to be knowledgeable about one thing. Anytime. All right, when are you going to finish Deception of a Generation? It was the thing that brought me to your channel. Yeah, I keep putting it off because I've just been busy with other things. But at some point I plan to. I've got like 2 or 3 videos left to do on it. You didn't have to delete that. Anybody who tells you that something is evil and then loads their entire table up with it, which I actually need to fix because it's clear that you're not seeing it on screen. There we go. Anybody who tells you something's evil and loads his table up with it and goes out and buys it is not a man you can trust. Oh, there's another video up there. Christ aware. Stop admiring demons. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe we'll look at that in the future, but not right now. But if they think they're evil and think you shouldn't have them, then they shouldn't either. That's the truth of the matter. Have you a religion yourself? Yes, I am a Christian. And that's why I tear into these people. SpongeBob. I don't know anything about Pie Guy rules. Actually, no, I do remember. I remember him now. He talked about Thundercats and said he was going to get somebody's opinion and then grab somebody who didn't know dick all about Thundercats. Real smart move. All right, so let's continue.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fellas. They seem to be all over the table. I see weapons, games, toys. There's even Turtles Craft Dinner. Obviously,
Craft Dinner?
They're going after the children in a very big way.
Oh no, marketing. I'm sure it's insidious.
Maybe you could start, Eric, and tell us something about the Turtles.
Well, there's probably never been anything like
Funny thing is, on this table, he has actually a pretty rare turtle figure, and it's that giant Bebop. Like, there are people who shell out like $200-300 for that now.
the Turtles in either the cartoon industry or the toy industry. It's a multi-million-dollar.
That's actually not true. In the 80s, there were a lot of really heavy hitters. Turtles wound up taking the lead in the 90s because the other things died out. But, like, go back into the mid-80s and look at He-Man. He was all over the place just like the Turtles were. And then, of course, later in the 90s, you had something else.
Business. It might get to be $1 billion by the time they're finished. It's certainly not waning any. The Mutant Ninja Turtles started as a cartoon back in 1988.
Hey, Pennsylvania.
At the beginning, it was just the violence of using martial arts between these half-men, half-turtle creatures and all of the villains that they would encounter.
Anytime you have a Christian getting mad about violence being shown, call them a hypocrite. Because there's a lot of violence in the Bible that, number one, what's the word I'm looking for? Not just serves a purpose, but is ordained that God tells people to do, justly so, but still, the argument should never be violence bad. Why did the violence happen? Violence is a tool. You have to use it properly. The Ninja Turtles use violence to fight against people who are trying to harm the world, harm society, and harm other people. There is literally nothing in the Bible that tells you you should not do that or that it's wrong. Period.
But slowly but surely, through using their hero or their guru, who is a rat named Splinter.
You know, I keep hearing that, people calling Splinter a guru. He's not, he's a sensei, and sensei means teacher. Why do they coach it in such weird language? Yes, there is murder in the Bible, and yeah, I wouldn't say genocide. I mean, there were attempts at genocide primarily by Egypt and King Herod, but it's a different thing to discuss.
You heard it here first, folks. A rat named Splinter is the hero of this cartoon.
Well, technically the Turtles are, and Splinter's their sensei. They keep coaching it in really weird language, and I've seen a lot of people in that era do it like that. They coach it in really strange language.
They have now begun to subtly introduce New Age philosophies and occultism and Eastern mystic beliefs to our kids. And as you just held up, this is I think a paint-by-number set for ages 3 and up. The marketing of this is making a lot of money, but it is also introducing at a very young age the idea that violence is an acceptable end to, or a means to an end, and
somebody hasn't read Revelation.
Also that New Age philosophies are a norm for our kids, and as we see this creeping in daily into the media.
What's the New Age philosophy of Ninja Turtles? Is it pizza every day or Cowabunga?
And our kids being exposed to it even in public schools and so on. This is just part of what's going on out there. The Turtles crawl out of New York City sewers and come on the scene, and of course they're very heroic. There's been 2 motion pictures made with the Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let me hold this one character up. This is one of the villains of the Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now remember, folks, when we say villains, the hero is using white magic or Eastern mystic good powers.
White magic, the magic of Leonardo hitting his gun with a sword. He casts Blade Cut.
Which is Star Wars taught us, the good side of the Force, and the...
Also, isn't Bebop holding a gun there? What magic powers a gun? Does he cast bullet?
Bad guys are using the bad powers, the black side of the Force.
But they're the same powers, are they?
Yeah, it's the same powers exactly.
What are you on about?
From a biblical viewpoint, it's white and black magic, which is a fallacy, as we all know right here at the table.
And Paul, I think people need to understand as well the...
Look at those! Who sculpted those?
background of ninjas. As Eric pointed out, the Mutant Ninja Turtles are presented as heroes. In all actuality, ninjutsu began approximately 400 years ago in feudal Japan. Ninjas were assassins. They were mercenaries. They were not good people. They were not heroes.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what they were doing. I mean, you know we have SEAL teams now, right? And the funny thing is the people who sit here and tell you that these assassins are not good people, essentially because of their job, are the same who will tell you to support our military, who absolutely have assassinated people. It's, again, my problem is always their lack of consistency.
They were very well practiced in martial arts. In fact, a ninja would start training.
Do you know what martial arts means? It means arts made for war. So what our military does. This is the 90s, Scary Harpy.
Probably 2 or 3 years of age, to make them...
No. Because you don't really absorb that at that age. Usually, specifically with samurai, they started training around 10, or 8 to 10, but never 2 or 3. Are you stupid? Where are you getting this from?
Almost supermen. They were able to do things that the common man can't, simply
because they trained. They weren't supermen, they just trained.
Because of the years and years of rigorous practice. But as I said, they weren't heroes. They weren't good people. They were...
Again, it depended on who their target was.
Assassins. Now we have them presented as heroes, as good guys, fighting bad guys. But it's important to realize that ninjas would go to any lengths in order to kill their victims. They were well versed in poisoning techniques. We have weapons here, toys, that are replicas of ninja weapons.
Once again, it's
Here's the funny thing about this. They're using this as a condemning article. They're similar to ninja weapons. Number one, believe it or not, Shuriken, not a ninja weapon. That was actually a samurai thing. And a butterfly knife? Really? That's a ninja weapon now? Man. And on top of that, it's a bootleg. Or not even a bootleg, because a bootleg is a copy of something else. This is something using similar lettering to try to fool parents into thinking that they're legitimate. That's why they call it reptile weapons. For all of you who have pets that are reptiles, watch out. Don't put these in the tank. They'll shank you.
That's right. And this, as you see here, a star or a circle here, the ninjas would have these. They're called shurikens. They would dip these in poison and throw them at the victim, usually striking the victim in the eye.
Based? Don't they also use kunai? I mean, technically a ninja would use whatever they could.
And it would cause death. Now, shurikens are illegal in Canada, as are nunchucks, which is another weapon. We don't have a sample here, but the Ninja Turtles do use a weapon known as nunchucks, 2 pieces of wood attached with a leather cord or a chain. They are also illegal weapons in Canada because of how dangerous they are.
They were illegal in Canada because they were easy to conceal, not because they were inherently more dangerous than other things. Well, I mean, that also can be considered a poison, Leandro. But, yeah, well, this was illegal, therefore, dude, look into the Bible, and there's like a bunch of things that happen there that are certainly illegal. I can't go to like a local bully who's messing with people, hit him in the head with a rock and take his head from him. I can't do that legally. Musashi actually learned his sword skill primarily from his father, Musashi.
And yet we have these heroes using them in front of the children on cartoons.
And it would certainly be easy.
Wait, so hold on. So using weapons that are considered in modern parlance as illegal is wrong because it's in children's stuff. But again, number one, Bible. Number two, I guarantee you any of these people watched old Westerns. Kids can't run around with firearms.
For the children.
And guns are illegal in Canada too, so I guess Ninja Turtles should use open carry guns instead. Well, no, not in Canada. I guess in Canada they just have to go around punching people, which, in fairness, more based, but still. Now, shurikens are illegal in Canada is now my favorite indictment of this weapon. Correct. Wolfie, $5 super chat. Thank you. This is fantastic, Lyle. I think these same guys use similar mental gymnastics on the World Wide Web as well. Yeah, they probably tried to. Thou shalt cast thou plowshares into swords and pruning hooks into spears. Correct.
To make their own real versions just by copying off these
That's
so-called
right.
harmless plastic versions.
And again, any kid who did found out real quick they don't hold up long.
That's right. And here we have balisong knives or butterfly knives. These are also banned. They're illegal weapons, and yet they are presented in these cartoons as being, as you said earlier, just like cops and robbers with the guns. And
you remember that one time Michelangelo pulled out a butterfly knife and shanked the shredder? Based.
And bows and arrows and so on. As I said, it's important for people to understand the background of ninjutsu. It is not pleasant. There's nothing pure about it, nothing good about it.
It's a tool. There's nothing inherently good or evil about it. It's how you use it.
They certainly should not be passed off as heroes.
And you know, I can just hear a parent saying out there, well, my kids aren't going to do that.
What is considered ninja weapons are modified farming tools, but most of what people consider ninja weapons unfortunately come from the 80s ninja craze and movies and Ninja Turtles. The sai is a farmer's tool. So are the nunchaku, so are the bow. But those are actually Okinawan weapons. Matter of fact, the police in Okinawa back in the feudal age used the sai instead of the jite, which is what the Japanese did. The samurai police would carry a jite and, of course, their daisho. But in Okinawa specifically, which is a sort of in-between area between China and Japan for trade purposes, they would use what the Ninja Turtles used for the most part, and they weren't inherently ninja themselves. People consider ninja weapons are all fabrications of movies and pop culture.
They just like the action of the
My kids will become ninjas if they watch the show. No, but they will become addicted to pizza.
movie or the cartoon or the toys or the games or all the other merchandise we see here.
Unrelated, but there are other forms of combat other than martial arts forbidden in countries like China. Not forbidden, but they look down on in sort of terms of social credit. There's an MMA guy who wound up busting chops of traditional martial artists, and now his social credit's absolute garbage because country can't stand it. Garbage country.
That has to do with the turtles.
Not garbage people, but it's ran poorly, therefore garbage country.
Our kids aren't going to get involved with that. Well, wait a second. I had a clipping given to me at one of our seminars up in Thunder Bay, Ontario.
But will they become addicted to candy corn pizza? I did it once, and I will do it again. I will perform that hate crime on the Italians. Just a curiosity of this man's mustache. Does he feel it gives him power? I mean, it might.
It was. This is a clipping from a South African newspaper where two little boys, 5 years old and one 8, were caught tearing up a nursery school in the middle of the night on a Friday night. They had slipped out of their homes. And
How old were these guys?
They were 5 years old and the other one was 8. There were 3 boys. 2 of them were 5, one was 8. They were caught tearing up a nursery school, and they said they were Ninja Turtles who had run amok. They were emulating, carrying out in their minds, and most psychologists would tell us that up until about age 6 or 7, most of our kids can't discern 100% of the time what is fantasy and what is reality.
And that's the parents' fault, because here's the thing. If they read like the biblical stories of different people and trashed the room and said they were emulating ex-biblical character, these people wouldn't say a word about it. Kids emulate things. Sometimes they do it in the wrong direction. That's what a parent's firm hand is for.
These kids were living in the fantasy world, which they had assumed was reality, that they were perfect.
I don't like Shadiversity because he's also the idiot who years ago wound up pissing off the entire HEMA community by essentially saying, oh, we shouldn't look at the original writings and fencing manuals because, they're clearly outdated, he said, while not actually practicing anything.
Perfectly capable, able, and it was okay for them to do what they'd seen in the cartoons.
And here we have the weapons being sold to them, recommended ages 3 and up.
And the toys help to increase that idea.
Chuck, maybe you could add a little bit more about the spiritual aspect of the turtles.
Yeah.
Yes, bring citations, please.
Yes, in fact, that's a very good point. Spiritually speaking, the ninjas were well trained in occult practices.
In occult, not occult, occult. Go ahead, cite the practices ninjas did.
In black magic, it wasn't a joke to them. It wasn't hocus pocus. They were raised in this, and they believed it strongly. Now, a lot of people, even Christians, sometimes doubt spiritual powers. You talk about black magic, and they doubt it. They doubt that it's possible. Whether you believe that or not, the fact remains that ninjas were incredibly powerful people. As I said earlier, they go to any lengths to reach their victims.
Who are these two? Are they affiliated with which religion? Primarily Christianity. They didn't give a specific denomination.
And assassinate them in whatever manner they needed to in order to achieve their goal.
Samurai did the same thing. Like any warrior will do the same thing. They go to heavy goals to take out their target. Our modern military does the same thing. He claimed the ninja practiced the occult, but he didn't tell us how.
In fact, ninjas were so hated that if one was ever caught, they were always tortured before killed.
That's most people in the Japanese penal prison back then. Like, sword testing used to be done on bodies.
Just killed because they were dreaded. People hated them. They feared for their lives knowing that ninjas were around.
I remember when Princess Bride came out, I used a plastic stick used for opening blinds and made a fencing sword out of it. But I also wasn't an idiot. Be careful. I did the same thing. Not for Princess Bride, but just because long stick equals sword.
These people were trained.
I got you one better, Miyamoto. Source, I made it the F up!
As I said, from infancy in the ways of black magic.
The ninjas were the most feared people of that era. There's no
ninja were the most feared people of that era. The most feared people of that era. No, they were not. Oh boy, they were not. Here's a list of things people were more scared of than ninja in feudal Japan. The daimyo, the samurai that were his retainers, the samurai down the street that did not like him because he was a merchant, the tengu in the forest, kappa, let's see here, the Buddhist priest down the road that smells badly. All these things higher rank in fear to the typical Japanese person of the feudal age than a ninja. Forgot. One thing. White people. Foreigners in general were more feared than ninja. Japanese people would make sure before crossing rivers they would have cucumbers so they don't piss off the kappa.
No doubt about it. But now we've popularized them with the Mutant Ninja Turtles. And obviously we're spending a lot of time on this, but they are by
Jesse Incomp, a YouTuber who did a number of videos on Okinawan martial arts culture, includes a video on the weapons. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, I've heard of him before.
far running away with the market of toys. And
Miyamoto, you want to know which foreigner you can tell when a foreigner's a ninja? When he runs with his hands behind his back.
the cartoon industry.
Well, when you speak about them starting early, I have right here teething biscuits. Ninja Turtle teething biscuits. So
You are being actively dishonest. Those are not teething biscuits. Those are just regular biscuits. Let me double check, because I want to make 100% sure. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize. There's some modern stuff. Obviously not what this guy's referring to. Let's use the word vintage when I search. No. Let's just try Ninja Turtles vintage biscuits. Yeah, it's just the Ninja Turtles cookies. They're not teething biscuits. They're literally just cookies. Dishonest lout.
So I guess that's, I don't know how old you are when you start cutting your teeth, but certainly not very old. And if you go straight from teething biscuits and the little ravioli we looked at earlier right into these...
Will Michelangelo ever get a Sharingan? That's a real question. Well, I don't know, dude. He's probably just gonna, like, put the guy in a state where he believes he's eating pizza for 100 years. That'll mellow him out, dude.
weapons, then it can certainly take
Yes, you must be sure to guard your butthole and your butthole bead from the kappa.
over a child's entire life.
Let me bring up one other point, too. I'm sure that there are skeptical parents who are good
Is this a rant against TMNT or an infomercial? They're shilling KO products. True.
Christians who say, but you guys are really out of balance. I mean, why are you bringing all this stuff up? This is harmless.
Because you're lying. That's why they're asking you questions about it.
My kids will know better. I'm taking them to church every Sunday. The other kids at church have the same.
Okay, a kappa. A kappa is a Japanese folk creature. And some people, call them demons, but that's not really accurate. This video's from the 90s, probably 1992, where I'd venture a guess, based on him mentioning Secret of the Ooze. A kappa is, ironically, a turtle yokai who tend to troll around rivers and streams, and they had an indentation on the top of their head that held water. And when people tried to pass, they had an obsession with getting a hold of somebody's soul orb, which is, for some reason in Japanese mythology, a bead that is in your stomach area. And they would reach into your butthole and take it out, and it would kill you. But there's two ways to get past the kappa. One, they have an obsession with cucumbers. They love cucumbers. Not pizza, be clear. Cucumbers. And if you give one to them, they'll leave you be and let you go. Or two, and this is the great part, they were obsessive fans of wrestling. And I mean sumo wrestling. So if you challenge the kappa to sumo and were able to wrestle him and dump the water out of the top of his head, he'd be incapacitated and you could pass. That's how you beat a kappa. Either you give him a cucumber or you out-sumo him.
Things, what?
We're just being paranoid.
Yeah, my kids they're gonna.
talking to an American. We have a character called Paul Bunyan. He's got a large blue moose. Oh, we got a guy that's like a turtle that wants your butthole peed.
I feel like they're the odd man out if I tell them they can't have this stuff. But our responsibility as parents is not to please our kids.
Your responsibility is also as Christians to be honest and tell the truth, and you've done none of that here. Teenage Mutant Sumo Turtle. They actually had toys of that, Norden, ironically. This is Ninja Turtles we're talking about.
Though that's fine at times, and certainly is a must to be good parents. Our responsibility is, what does God say about us agreeing with
I'm still baffled. There are people who still believe you can become a ninja by going to a dojo, saying if you want to school, you can become an MI6 agent. I mean, maybe in Japan there's a few ninja schools still around, but very much so aging out.
this stuff and funding these items and, in essence, giving them to our kids, basically throwing this stuff at our kids and saying, go ahead, be just like this. That's what we're doing unless we're careful. I'm not into being paranoid. And
you are being paranoid because you've lied about half of this and you made the other half up. These people who go, well, we can't give funding to these things, as though it's some sinister plan while they sit there and tell you, support your local government. It's asinine.
We're certainly not here to teach that. It's not the purpose of this video or this discussion here.
No, the purpose is for you to lie through your teeth because you see a fad and somehow through the myopic misunderstanding your brain puts into account, well, this thing got popular really quick. There must be something sinister to it. It couldn't possibly be something really creative the kids latched on because it's just a cool concept. Couldn't possibly be.
But we as parents must realize what is going on today and must understand how the forces of darkness don't always appear evil. The devil doesn't come up and knock on your door and say, hi, I'm the devil, recognize me?
Your entire argument is that this is all plain in your face, so let me go ahead and be a little biblical here. What's a more effective tool from the devil? Is it to go jump through hoops, get a couple of random guys, and for the record, the devil can't tell the future. So, get a couple of random guys in an apartment to draw a Ninja Turtle sketch, have them publish an indie comic that spins out into a massive hit, which again, Satan can neither control nor can he predict. To get kids interested in pizza to further his new age order, or is it a little easier, a little more understanding, a little quicker on the Occam's razor? For Satan to just make you paranoid and make you hate what your kids like, so you take it away from them, to make them hate you and therefore, because of your reasoning, also hate God? Seems a little easier, don't you think? Seems a little bit more like you're playing into that scheme than the Ninja Turtle creators are. I don't know, it just seems like it'd be a lot easier of a strat. I know Fred Rogers wasn't a fan of violence in cartoons, but he never went the whole this is the work of the devil argument, and he was an actual minister. Yeah. Well, let's get this guy a bit of doubt. He might not believe what he's saying, but he's also lying out of his butt and just after people's money. Also true.
He comes as an angel of light, and oftentimes he'll slip in any area where we have an open door, where we're just...
Like you. Like you're doing.
Aloof. We must remember the devil's got a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job, and that's to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's always on that mission. We can't let our guard down. We need to have the armor on, be ready for spiritual warfare, and realize this is part of spiritual warfare, that our kids are under attack every day. Subtly in some cases, very blatantly and boldly in others. But however it comes at us, we've got to be ready. And our kids, need the answer as to why these things are wrong before.
That's why you can't answer to any of them, why? Right? That's why you couldn't tell us what black magic they do. That's why you couldn't tell us anything factual about these. It's all stuff you made up. Because you saw something that made you feel weird because it got really popular and you didn't know what to do with it. Because you idiots did this later on in the 90s too. For those of you who did not live through Turtle Mania of the 90s, the only thing that rivaled it, if not maybe surpassed it, was Pokemania later in the same decade.
They're faced with these things next door or at school or with the kids down the block or wherever. If our kids know what is wrong with this stuff and know why this is evil, why it's wrong, why it's anti-biblical, then they have a whole lot better chance of being able to resist it themselves.
Here's the thing. You tell your kid, you can't play with that, you can't watch that because it has black magic. And they goes to school. Hey, John, what happened to your Ninja Turtles? You had them last time. Well, I don't have them now. My mom says that they practice black magic. Where do they practice black magic? No answer. You just set your kid up for failure. It made you look like a lunatic.
Well, one thing that parents need to tell their children as well is that sometimes to be a good Christian, you have to be the odd man out.
I don't disagree with that inherently, but you're lying to do it. You are lying. You are bearing false witness against not only the people who created this, but your own congregations. And God will have his vengeance.
And it's not always going to be easy decisions. And like you say, with all their kids, all their friends playing with this, and
you know, I don't think these guys had any kids. Because you ever notice all these people who go on about what your kids should and shouldn't watch, none of them ever have kids.
everything seems to have turtles written all over it for the kids now. Sometimes they need to know that it is a difficult choice, but the right one nonetheless.
That's right.
I am so not getting into this right now. You can tell what I've been watching lately. Alright, so we've had fun. I've enjoyed tearing into all these things, and hopefully you've learned something. We got some turtle stuff coming up here soon. I actually found the answer to the turtle mystery I asked the other day, so probably tomorrow is a short. I'll be uploading that. No joke, there was a small controversy in Arabic regions because some hack Shiite claimed Pokemon was financed by Israel and the Pokemon's names were insults against Islam. Well, technically they'd have a better argument for that with Power Rangers because Haim Saban gave a lot of money to Israel because he loves that place after he got money from doing Power Rangers. So, kind of a goofy claim to make. I wonder what that dude's problem with Pokemon was. I'm leaving this with a bigger and greener brain, dude. Alright, so we've had enough for tonight, and a new video is coming tomorrow, so I will see you guys.